Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm David Martin. I'll have the story of Our Lady of Peace Church in Turners Falls, which opened as a merged parish 10 years ago, before the pastoral planning was put into action in the Springfield Diocese.
Hundreds of lay ministers are recognized during a special Mass at Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament in Westfield. I'm Carolee McGrath. I'll have the story.
And Dan Dumas takes a look at the latest news from the Diocese of Springfield. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel from Our Lady of Peace Parish in Turners Falls. Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. Today as we come to you from Our Lady of Peace Parish in Turners Falls, a Catholic community which earlier this month marked a milestone. Back in January 2006, when the diocesan pastoral planning process was just in the beginning stages, 3 Franklin County parishes, St. Mary of the Assumption and St. Anne in Turners Falls, and Sacred Heart in Greenfield were merged into a new parish, Our Lady of Peace, named by parishioners to pray for peace because of tensions and violence in society and the continuing threat of terrorism. Now, a decade later, Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky and founding pastor Father Stanley Examet joined more than 500 people for the 10th anniversary celebratory Mass. David Martin was there and has our story.
As they gathered to mark a decade, parishioners of Our Lady of Peace Church in Turners Falls expressed pride in their milestone and that they have been a welcoming Catholic faith community. Chief celebrant for the anniversary Mass, Springfield Bishop Mitchell T. Rosansky said in his homily that as 3 Franklin County parishes merged, it was a journey of trust for the many parishioners who may have felt a bit threatened by change, which is not always easy. Bishop Rosansky said that as God's people living lives of faith, they are called to have both trust and hope that it is all part of God's plan of salvation in uniting them as His people.
You can see that they enjoy praying together and being together and serving together. So it meant so much for me personally to be here, to be part of this wonderful celebration of the 10th anniversary of Our Lady of Peace Parish.
It was a wintry day back in January 15, 2006, when Our Lady of Peace celebrated its inaugural Mass. The former St. Mary the Assumption Church building was utilized as it merged with St. Anne Church, also in Turners Falls, and Sacred Heart Church in Greenfield to become the new parish.
When we were coming together, we made a connection with the 3 kings, being guided by a star. The people said, when we drive by the churches that closed, we feel somewhat nostalgic and feel sad about that. But what we have now is much stronger. And by working together and having the gifts of that many more people together, it really works out for the best.
Young parishioners played a prominent role in the 10th anniversary Mass. Some sang in the Spanish choir. Representatives from the 6th and 7th grade classes of the Our Lady of Peace religious education program presented a book of memories from the past 10 years to Bishop Rosansky. The involvement of the youth was especially appreciated by longtime parishioner Connie Sicard, who was baptized at the former St. Mary of the Assumption Church 76 years ago. She is proud of the cultural diversity and community outreach of her parish.
We feel you cannot have peace without justice. And one of the ministries I've been involved with for 32 years in this area is the Franklin County Community Meal. And there is a community meal downstairs every Monday evening. And we reach out to our guests with socialization, food to take home.
A little bit of the old and a little bit of new traditions were part of the Our Lady of Peace Parish here in Turners Falls 10th anniversary celebratory Mass. Father Stan explained to the congregation in Spanish and English that they would receive packets of chalk and incense. The chalk is used to print the current year and the first initials of the 3 Magi above a major doorway for a blessing of their homes, an old Polish tradition. Later, Bishop Rosansky blessed some bottles of holy water for parishioners to bless each other and take home for use on a daily basis.
Father Stan asked us to do this during the Easter Vigil and Easter Day. And we started this process of having families all bless each other. And when we saw how wonderful it was for the grandparents and the children to be blessing each other and how happy they were, we thought this was a really good idea.
Parishioner Jim Devlin enjoys visiting area nursing homes to offer residents communion as the Eucharistic minister, but most of all, he loves meeting others.
At first I thought, well, I'm the one that's giving, but I discovered very quickly that they were giving too. Yeah, they wanted to talk, but it was a visit that was mutual. And I enjoy visiting with these people now. They're my friends.
Greg Pellerin, a religious education teacher at Our Lady of Peace, looks forward to a future of diverse and young parishioners who will continue attending church.
To hear the babies during Mass is wonderful, and hope that we can have more of that and that we keep the young college students and everybody still coming. So that's really the challenge, and that's really what I see is that bringing that next generation so that they understand the relevance of their faith.
After the anniversary Mass, a reception took place in the church basement for parishioners to reminisce about their involvement at Our Lady of Peace, a parish that has offered service to many in the Turners Falls community for the past 10 years. For Reel to Reel, I'm David Martin.
Congratulations to Our Lady of Peace as it continues to reach out to the community, welcoming others, and also to serve as a successful model in putting pastoral planning into action. And speaking of putting faith into action, members of the Catholic Worker Movement and parishioners at St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield teamed up to help the needy stay warm late last fall. Volunteers and community members who donated to the 11th Coat and Blanket Drive sponsored by the Springfield Catholic Worker hope their efforts will ensure that the needy will stay warm this winter. The clothing drive took place on a bitter and windy day at the Bishop Marshall Center parking lot at St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield. Charlie Spencer, a secular Franciscan who is involved with the Catholic Worker, spearheaded the event.
People like to clean out their closets and get rid of things they know they'll never use again, and it makes them feel good to donate it to a worthy cause.
All donations were going to Open Pantry Community Services. Spencer said notices about the clothing drive went out to various parishes, and he was pleased with the response.
I hope other people would do the same thing, try to get out and get stuff for people who don't have it. I mean, a city is full of people who can't afford coats, food, and it's just a good thing to do. It makes me feel good that I did something good today.
Claire Lynch, also a secular Franciscan, said the cold temperature gave all who were present at the drive a type of empathy for those they are helping to obtain winter clothing for.
Maybe it will help some people realize that other people actually do care, and sometimes that's even just as important as feeling warmer, is feeling the warmth of love of other people.
Spencer said he's grateful to the staff at St. Michael's Cathedral, Open Pantry Community Services, and all those who donated to the Coat and Blanket Drive. And tying into this service to those in need, the Catholic Church this month marks Poverty Awareness Month. The U.S. bishops, along with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, are taking up Pope Francis's challenge to live in solidarity with the poor. Joining me now is Catherine Buckley Bronner, Director of the Catholic Charities Office for the Diocese of Springfield, to tell us more about this effort locally. Hello, Catherine, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Now, as we begin this new year, it is sort of starting off on a sobering note when we think of those who are living in poverty. What do the bishops want people to know?
I believe that the USCCB, our bishops, would like us to remember that there are still about 47 million Americans that live in poverty, and that 1 out of 6 of those people are children. It's a very high percentage of children that do live in poverty here in the United States. And that even as our country tries to move forward from some of the economic recession, the number of people who remain in poverty has been consistently high and is actually rising.
And specifically locally with your office, what are some of the challenges you are facing and how can people help?
Some of the challenges that we face here in Hampden County are the challenges of the fact that across Massachusetts, the poverty rate is somewhere between 10 and 11%, but here in Hampden County, the poverty rate is closer to 17 to 18%. It's a lot of people that we have to serve here in this greater Springfield area. Some of the challenges are a lack of resources. And another challenge is really helping people break the cycle of poverty. That means not just providing them with assistance, but also providing them with ways to better be able to handle their own affairs so that they can themselves lift themselves out of poverty. We have some really very good programs through Catholic Charities that have really taken off in helping people to really get a grip on how to break that cycle of poverty. But as you can imagine, it's very labor intensive, it's also very resource intensive. So resources still remain our biggest challenge in addressing the needs of the poor.
All right, Catherine Buckley-Bronner, thanks so much for your insight today and best of luck to you in your efforts.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
And for more information, you can find a link on our website at iobserve.org. And still to come on Reel to Reel, Dan Dumas will be by with a look at what's happening in the Diocese of Springfield. And parish ministers are honored for their hard work and dedication. These stories and more are still to come on this edition of Reel to Reel from Our Lady of Peace Parish in Turners Falls.
Christ be our light, shine in our hearts.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passion's Brother Terrence Scalen, your Chalice host, inviting you to join us Sunday morning at 10. This week, we welcome back Monsignor Christopher Conley, Vicar General and Rector of St. Michael's Cathedral, as our Mass presider. The Chalice of Salvation, your spiritual connection, Sunday morning at 10, right here on 22 News.
In this state, there are no extras, no fluff, no frills, no free lunch, no second helpings, no streets paved with gold, no promise, no certainty. In this state, life is a bitter struggle to survive with the least. It's home to 1 out of every 11 families in America. It's home to 1 out of every 6 children in America. It's the state of American poverty. And if you were poor, you'd be home by now.
Butcher, baker, candlestick maker. I didn't care what they grew up to be, as long as they were happy. To give up marriage and children just seems like too much to walk away from.
He seems to think he's making a real difference in people's lives, and he's so happy. Isn't that what's most important?
I never would have imagined our son as a Catholic priest.
I'm Dan Dumas with your Reel to Reel news brief. It was a busy week for Bishop Mitchell Rosansky. Last Saturday afternoon, he and Diocesan Vocation Director, Father Gary Daly, boarded a plane for Rome. The week-long trip was planned to coincide with 2 diocesan seminarians currently studying in Rome, Frank Furman and Bernardo Rios, being installed as lectors. Within a few hours of arriving, Bishop Rosansky, wearing a vestment once worn by Pope Francis, was celebrating the Mass of Installation in the chapel of the North American Seminary on a hill just above the Vatican. Bishop Rosansky is spending time at each of the seminaries where diocesan men are preparing for the priesthood. A few days later, Bishop Rosansky and Father Daly celebrated Mass in the Polish chapel in the crypt of St. Peter's Basilica. The chapel was built with funds donated by the late Monsignor Alphonse Skodnicki in 1958, who was then the pastor of the former Saints Peter and Paul parish in the Three Rivers section of Palmer. The chapel was frequented by St. John Paul II while he was a Polish cardinal and later as a pope. Bishop Rosansky also paid a visit to the Holy Door at St. Peter's and participated in the Pope's Wednesday audience, in which he spoke of mercy. And as Bishop Rosansky would attest, meeting the Pope is quite an experience, one recently enjoyed by a New Jersey family who took part in the New Year's Day Papal Mass at St. Peter's. They share their observations in this Catholic News Story segment.
My name's Linda McCarran, and this is my family, and we had the honor of taking up the offertory to the Holy Father on New Year's Day. I was nervous. I was thinking, this is so surreal. Is this really happening? I mean, what a privilege and what an honor. I think we probably all felt the same.
It's just so overwhelming and joyous that it just brought tears to my eyes, actually.
I was just trying not to trip. I mean, I was very nervous.
He held my hand and he gave me a blessing. Then he said I was beautiful.
It felt comfortable to be around him, and I think that's, the message that he sends, is a simple one of love and peace, and that's what made it feel so great.
We were born with Pope Pius XII, and since then there's been 6 popes, and I never ever dreamed of meeting a pope face to face. What a thrill. It's just unreal.
We were lucky enough to both shake hands with John Paul II. My wife had one hand and I had another hand, which was unbelievable. Of course, what happened on January 1st was even well beyond that.
It's so amazing to see the Holy Father, and to me it makes me want to be the best Catholic that I could ever be. And that is now my new mantra for 2016.
Before he departed for Rome, Bishop Rosansky hosted church music ministers from across the country. John Thornton reports.
Last week, the Conference of Roman Catholic Cathedral Musicians was held at St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield. The annual conference is held every year in January in a different city and cathedral. Springfield Bishop Mitchell T. Rosansky was the celebrant for the conference's morning prayer. Bishop Rosansky explained what the event consists of.
Our Cathedral of St. Michael's today has been very privileged to host musicians from cathedrals from throughout the United States and Canada. And they're meeting in this area as a gathering to share ideas, to give support to one another, and also to come together, especially to pray. So between the Archdiocese of Hartford and our Diocese of Springfield, they're meeting, praying together, celebrating at liturgy, and sharing their ideas as to how to bring people closer to God through the gift of music.
Music rang from the halls of St. Michael's Cathedral as music directors from major dioceses across North America gathered to pray with their peers, share their own original compositions, and exchange ideas about how to better improve music in their own diocese. Lad Pfeiffer, the music director at St. Michael's Cathedral, said what the conference means to him.
If you are a priest, you are expected to go on a retreat every year. This is our retreat. This is a time in which the music directors are not only able to exchange ideas, their thoughts about certain things of liturgy, but it's also time in which people get to spend several hours just sitting in a cathedral, not having to worry about choir rehearsal or something, but to just spend time thinking about their life, their musical life, how are they serving their people.
The annual conference has been held before in Europe as well as North America. Music directors look forward to next year's conference and a European conference that could happen as early as 2019. In Springfield, I'm John Thornton.
Last November, those whose lives have been impacted by dementia, their caregivers and loved ones, gathered for the second annual Purple Mass at St. Michael's Cathedral. Julie Beaulieu reports.
Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia are brain diseases in which one of its effects is memory loss. On November 21st, St. Michael's Cathedral held its second annual Purple Mass, sponsored by the Knights and Ladies of St. Peter Claver, in order to pray for a cure and prevention for Alzheimer's disease. Bishop Rosansky was this year's Mass presider.
I had visited many Alzheimer's patients as a priest when I was in the parish to bring them communion, to pray with them. And it was amazing to me that many of them who might have forgotten so much in their lives still remembered how to pray the Our Father. That was in their minds, and they could still pray the Our Father. You could see the look of familiarity come over their faces as they prayed those words. And it was consoling to me to know that faith is so embedded in their hearts that even though memory may have robbed them of so many other things, they could still pray the Our Father.
Sharon Harris, Grand Lady of the St. Peter Claver Society's Ladies Auxiliary, recently lost her mom to dementia at age 82.
My mom had dementia. She died this October. And it's hard to watch this lady of wisdom lose her memory. She's kept her family together. But in her suffering with the disease, she was able to give out wisdom, even to the last time of her life.
In 1983, President Ronald Reagan had declared November National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month.
And finally, glad to report things at the central offices of the Diocese of Springfield are drying out after a valve on a rooftop unit failed, sending water down through 3 floors. As a result, diocesan offices were closed for a full week, and some departments have been relocated while repairs are undertaken. A special shout out to the Catholic Communications Graphics Department, Liz Gollin and Barbie Bagley, who took the brunt of the water damage on our floor. Glad to say they're back up and running. And for all the latest news in the Catholic Church, locally or beyond, log on to our news and information website, iobserve.org. That's iobserve.org. I'm Dan Dumas, and that's your Real to Real News Brief.
They put in countless hours in their parishes, evangelizing, ministering, sharing their God-given talents. They are lectors, Eucharistic ministers, choir members, and catechists, just to name a few. Last Saturday, before he boarded his flight to Rome, Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky gathered with 600 of these lay ministers who were recognized during a special Mass and reception held at Westfield's Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament Parish. Reel to Real's Carolee McGrath was there and has more.
Filled with faith, more than 600 people gathered at Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament Parish in Westfield for a special Mass honoring lay ministers of the Church.
The people who gathered today are in so many different ministries in their parishes, so active, and through those ministries, they allow God to work through them.
The celebration of ministries, Pathways to Evangelization, was a day organized to encourage and to recognize the many lay ministers or parish ministers across the diocese. Springfield Bishop Mitchell T. Rosansky celebrated the 9:30 a.m. Mass. Parish ministers include Eucharistic ministers, ushers, lectors, music ministers, catechists, and choir members. The event was part of the diocese's new evangelization effort, which began last fall. Sister of St. Joseph Paula Robillard, the director of the Office of Faith Formation for the diocese, organized the celebration.
We did it specifically this year because of the year of evangelization and because of our evangelization efforts within the diocese. And the bishop said it perfect. They are the first evangelizers. You know, people can feel so welcomed when they walk into church by just a smile and a nod. I'm amazed at how many people were here. It says something great about our diocese.
Adalberto Santiago, a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish in Holyoke, is in the diaconate formation program.
We are the light of Jesus after the baptism. We have to bring the light. So that's the reason I'm here, because I am part of the light, to bring the light, especially on those souls that are in darkness.
Rose Lopez is the pastoral minister at St. Catherine of Siena Parish in Springfield.
I remember when I was trained by Father Gonnet, he said, always make sure you walk the walk because people will recognize you outside of your church. And it's true. We are the first people that people see. And sometimes a smile, a hello, a how are you today? We don't know what people are going through in their lives. And sometimes that can make the difference in their day, just to be compassionate and kind. And I think the bishop in his homily touched on that we are the disciples of Christ. We should be out there and we should be evangelizing and bringing people to Jesus.
In his homily, the bishop explained how a multitude of angels appeared to the shepherds in the fields to tell them about the birth of the Savior. The shepherds, who were poor and on the margins of society, were the first ones to get this great news. And the bishop says this was no accident.
The kernel of the Gospels is the revealing of Christ. And so the first people to hear were the shepherds, the ones who were out in the fields. They were on the margins of society, and they represent that the newborn king came into the world for those who are on the margins, to bring sinners closer into the circle to God, to bring them forgiveness and life. And that's what the story of the shepherds truly teaches us. Each one of us, just like the angels heralded the good news to the shepherds, and the star revealed the good news to the Magi, each one of us, in letting the light of Christ shine through us, helps to reveal his love to others.
People left energized and excited to be Christ's light in the world. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
And the event also included a presentation by Father Warren Savage, the chaplain at Westfield State University. We join in thanking these many dedicated parishioners. And for this week from Our Lady of Peace Parish in Turners Falls, that's Reel to Reel. Our thanks to Father Stanley Examet and everyone here for hosting our visit today. And just a reminder that on Tuesday, January 19th at 6 p.m., Catholic Communications will be hosting an information night for our fall pilgrimage to the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico. No advance registration is required. Just stop by the Holy Spirit Chapel at 6 p.m. this coming Tuesday. And for more information on this trip or our 2017 planned pilgrimage to Fatima, you can log on to our website at iobserve.org. And there you will also find the latest news on the Catholic Church locally and around the world. That's iobserve.org. And also please friend us on Facebook. We are at Catholic Communications. And join me again next week at this same time for another edition of Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.